So welcome everyone. My name is Nancy Norris Bauer. I'm from William Patterson University. I'm a co-host today. We're delighted to have you join us. And it's going to be a wonderful conversation about a partnership between Rowan University and Cherry Hill Public Schools. And I'm going to turn it over to George Guy, who is going to introduce his co-presenters and get us started. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you, Nancy, and welcome to you all. We are very excited to be with you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started. All right, let's try that again. Welcome, friends. So my name is George Guy. I'm going to introduce my co-presenters today from Cherry Hill Public Schools. We're in Camden County. We are one of the largest school districts in Camden County, 13th largest school district in the state. One of our incredible presenters is our wonderful superintendent, Dr. Joseph Malash. You'll hear from him very soon. And then we have something that we are very proud of. We have student advocates, pre-K to 12 folks, Yanel Joseph and Ashley Giles, who do a great job on both sides of our community, the east and the west sides of Cherry Hill, in working with our students that are gonna talk with you today about high school students' roles with the Rowan University Impact Program. And then my name is George Guy. I'm the principal of Rose International Middle School, but I'm also the Men of Color facilitator for the Rowan University Impact Program. So we're going to talk a little bit about that partnership and some ways in which your schools and school districts can be involved with Rowan. So we have two pictures in front of us. Rowan's Impact Scholars, and Impact stands for Increasing Male Practitioners and Classroom Teachers, visited with us February 2019, and they also visited again with us before the pandemic in February 2020. Let me just take a moment because we have new people coming in. They have not had the slides, so I'm going to put those slides in, and just a reminder, we are recording this session. So let me just hit this hyperlink to show you a little bit about the Rowan University Impact Program. It is increasing male practitioners and classroom teachers. It has been in existence for 5 years now, and we have already started graduating cohorts. It is a partnership between Rowan University, and then there are, it has a Men of Color network in which, sorry about that, in which there are men such as myself that are coming to support these young impact scholars in the things that they do in their college education, but they also, with today's presentation, they come to a number of school districts, Cherry Hill just being one of them, and they come and support high school students. They try to recruit high school students, specifically males of color, into the program so that they can be pre-service and then in-service teachers such as themselves. So that's a little bit about the Impact Program. Let's go back here. And at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Malash to unmute himself and talk a little bit about the district's commitment to Rowan University and the Impact Program. Dr. Malash?
Thank you, Mr. Guy. It's very nice to spend some time with all of you this afternoon. I've really been looking forward to this presentation and to sharing the relationship that the school district continues to work on and to nurture with Rowan University. And there is a relationship, and like any successful relationship, it does require work and it requires commitment. The value of the Impact Program in terms of what Rowan is growing on their campus how they continue to adjust, how they continue to develop, and how they continue to recruit students, especially these young men who are interested in becoming educators, is so incredibly valuable to us. Cherry Hills School District is changing. There's a changing demographic as we become more diverse. It's a beautiful thing for the community. I've lived here for nearly 45 years. It's a dramatically different place today and a much more wonderful place. There are well over 70 languages spoken at home, and there are more students and families of color in Cherry Hill today than there ever have been before. One of the biggest challenges, as happens throughout public education, is that the diversity of our staff has nowhere near kept up with the diversity of the children who are in our classrooms, or with the families who are living in the homes, who are our neighbors, and whose children are in our schools on a daily basis. So as we found out more about the Rowan Impact Program, and we have administrators and staff members who are directly involved, as George is one, who are directly involved in the program, we made the commitment to become more integrated in terms of the partnership with exposing the young men from the Rowan program to Cherry Hill, to our schools, to our students, and exposing our students to the young men from Rowan. So for the 2018, 2019, and 2019-2020 academic year, we wanted to bring the Rowan students onto campus, into our schools, to be able to meet our staff and to be able to meet our students. One of the questions that as a superintendent, and even going back to when I was a building principal, I would always ask kids in high school is, have you considered becoming a teacher? I do think it's one of those things that as educators, we do not do often enough, is we do not recruit children often enough to go into the greatest profession that exists in the world. So I was thrilled to be able to spend a little time and help with making the district's commitment to bringing these young men onto our campus. So financially, we made a commitment to providing buses. We paid to bus the kids from Rowan up to our campus here in Cherry Hill. We also paid for lunch for the Rowan students and for our high school students, because we wanted them to meet together. And again, there's no better way to get kids to talk and to get kids to spend time together than truly breaking bread with one another, to help to laugh and to talk and to build relationships. There's been tremendous support from our Board of Education and from board members. We've had board members do welcomes. We've had board members who have come and participated and have been there. And that shows to these students at Rowan that this is a district that is not just trying to pay lip service. We're not just saying, yes, we want to diversify our staff, but there's a commitment from the top, from the organizing body, from the governing body, to say that this is what we want to have here in Cherry Hill. When I had the opportunity to address our students and to address the impact students, is basically we told these young men from Cherry Hill, and George, go into the numbers, I think there were around almost 100 of them last year that were there, that I will guarantee these kids that if they leave Cherry Hill and go to college and get a teaching certificate, that we will work out a way to get them back into district. And for the impact students, I guaranteed all of the impact students that when they are ready and they're looking for jobs, I can guarantee that we will interview them for any job for which they are qualified. We want to have them in our district. We want to have them be able to come back. And again, to build that cycle of young men and young women, because I would expect that at some point we'd expand it, but of young men specifically of color who want to go into education and to become teachers. So incredibly enriching for our students, incredibly enriching and beneficial for our staff to see.
Thank you, Dr. Malash. And now we're going to hear from our two student advocates, Yanel Joseph and Ashley Giles. Take it away, Yanel and Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Guy, and thank you all for having us here today. So the job of the student advocates in terms of Project Impact, we do the work of getting the students to the presentation. So that is a lot of the behind the scenes work with inviting the students, making sure that they're aware of this awesome engagement opportunity and to get them to the actual event. So the first thing that we did was we tapped into our numerous resources within our district in order to invite the students. So first we looked at the affinity groupings within the schools, our extracurricular activities. We looked at our clubs such as our African American culture clubs that we have both in our East and West high schools, our Latinos at West and East, our Asian culture clubs. And we also recently, within the last few years, started clubs such as the Middle Eastern Culture Club at High School West and our Muslim Student Association at High School East. when we tapped into those resources, we were able to talk to students within those affinity groupings and invite them directly to our project impact workshops.
And hi, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Yanel Holiday Joseph, and I am also the student advocate. I'm on the east side of town. We've also tapped into our Spanish heritage classes. That is a class that is held at West High School, where Spanish speaking students have an opportunity to, talk in their native language and receive supports that are specific to them. So, and that's unique to West right now. We have the African American Studies classes that are both at East and West. They are electives that students can take. ELL classes, the English language learner classes that are at both schools. The SAC, school age childcare. This is our after school program for the district. So elementary school students have an opportunity. Their parents, if they sign up, can go right to their school, right to their after school program. That is something that the families pay for. And then they're also given snacks. They have opportunities to do their homework, and then there's recreation. So myself and Ms. Giles, we have held specific like job fairs for the students in reference to giving them that opportunity and experience to work with elementary school students. So it's a unique program that we have. I think, part of this is very, working with the students is very intentional. So we, in particular, have just reached out, I think, to all the students, African-American, Brown, Latino, like she said, Muslim students. We didn't want to necessarily say, to the kids, because again, when we talk about education and you talk about teaching, very rare that, males say, okay, I'm interested. So what I know I did at East and Ms. Giles did is that we invited everyone and we just wanted to give them that exposure so they can, make an informed decision and like I said, get that experience and have that opportunity to hear about what education is like. Project Success is a mentoring program that I started about 11 years ago with some students. So we had attended a conference. It was a minority student conference. And I had asked the students, okay, so if there's a program that you could do, what would you do? And they said, we would love to mentor elementary school students. So this is a program where actually the minority students wanted to give back to their community elementary schools. So that has been, really successful. Again, this is our 11th year, and it allows students to, we have elementary students from different elementary schools. We address academics, we address social, and then there's some behavioral work, mentoring work that we do with the students. So that is an after school program. So again, I think, being able to expose our students to these opportunities and then give them that experience that allows them to make informed decisions as to what they would like to do once they finish post-high school. And let's see, so this talks about firsthand conversations of the impact of this program. So I think what was important for the students, these are just anecdotal stories. Yes. It allowed students to really, again, have that exposure. The impact students also talk to our students about the college process. How did they end up where they ended up? What's their experience like at school? Asking those questions about, classes going on. Do you have to go to class? Gives them an opportunity to, ask those questions about the college process, and balancing life, academics, sports. and just again allowing the students to hear about their educational and their process as far as career and how they ended up where they ended up. They said that it was important for the mentoring piece, that, you know, without like people like Mr. Guy, that, you know, was able to follow them and mentor them through their process, allow them to be, you know, successful, and someone to have that support. So that's really important, you know, for the students, what they express to us. And know Miss Giles has one story in particular in reference to a young man that actually did end up going into education. So she's going to share that story.
Yes. Next slide, please. As educators, we plant the seeds within our students, and sometimes we get to see what grows from it, not always. But in this case, we were luckily able to see. This was one of our first interactions with Project Impact at the high school level, at High School West. And this is when Dr. Johnson came from Rowan University just to give our students the background information about what Project Impact was about. We invited about 50 students to come, eat lunch, hear what Dr. Johnson, the information he had to offer. One of the young men, who was a sophomore at the time, came to the luncheon and he said, honestly, I'm undecided about what I want to do when I go to college, but thank you for inviting me. He ended up sitting in the front row of the presentation, listened intently. He took notes during the presentation. So afterwards I said, would you like to be involved with something like this with Project Impact? And he said, it sounds really great, but I was really impressed by just seeing all the Black males in the room, our principal, our principals throughout our district, CST members who are influential with our students in the district. So that really set well with him. As years went on, we had other opportunities to invite him to other leadership opportunities that dealt with becoming an educator within the state and other Project Impact events that we had throughout the years. He actually just graduated in the spring of 2020, our recent graduating class. He is going to attend Camden County University to do his prerequisite courses, but he will be transferring to an HBCU, a historically Black college and university, where he will major in special education. So I'm grateful that we were able to, like I said, plant the seed when he was in 10th grade, and now we're seeing it blossom throughout the years. So, you know, we're extremely grateful to Dr. Johnson and to Rowan University for just, you know, having that partnership with our district where we're able to increase the number of male practitioners of color, you know, within education.
So thank you, Yanel, and thank you, Ashley, for that wonderful information. So I just want to follow up on some of the things that Ashley and Yanel spoke about in terms of the male staff of color. So I want to give incredible kudos to Nancy Adrian of our Human Resources Department, who for the last 2 years has been able to isolate males of color in Cherry Hill Public Schools, both certificated and non-certificated. And I want to thank all 19 of our building administrators and Dr. Malash for allowing creative scheduling so that these certificated and non-certificated male staff of color, we had 23 each year, come over to both high schools East and West and talk with our high school students, talk with them about what their roles were in Cherry Hill Public Schools, how they got into public education, what it meant to be a male certificated or non-certificated staff member of color in a predominantly white district. They also took time to speak with our Rowan Impact students and share things. And sometimes they tag team with the high school, with one another to try and support what some of those things would be that high school students were going through. So I think it was important that we had the certificated and non-certificated staff members to come and kind of lay the groundwork, because some of them had been 0 to 5 staff members. Some of them had been in Cherry Hill Public School for over a decade. So we certainly wanted to present the image to these high schoolers that, look, you can get into the Rowan Impact Program, you can go through, you can become an educator, you can come back to Cherry Hill Public Schools, and you will have longevity here. We're not diversified as much as we want to, but we're going to put the supports here to retain you in this school district, so that we thought that that was important. In 2020, we had our principals come over. Some of them were principals of color, some assistant principals, our supervisors, our directors came over, and they interacted with our high school students, and they interacted with the impact students. And they interacted more with the impact students and asked them questions about their matriculation. So we had each one of the 13 impact students that came in 2020, give them their major, they gave them their business cards, they made connections with them. We know right now that one of our students is going to be graduating in December, and he is hooked in with Karen Rockhill, who's our early childhood principal, and she's going to be working on interviewing him. We also have a K-5 student who is going to be interviewing with one of our principals over at Joyce Kilmer, Dr. Kirk Rickenrud. So these were opportunities for principals to connect, to look at the impact scholars and the types of majors that they were, to give them ideas about their matriculation. In the future, we are going to have them submit their resumes. We're going to do a resume clinic. We're going to do some mock interviews. So these are everything that Joe, Yanel, and Ashley talked about as it related to planting the seed and then nurturing the seeds, is what Cherry Hill Public Schools has been doing. So incredible, incredible work with that. These are some of the outcomes, because we always want to, because there's a fiduciary expense here, we want to be able to make sure that we have some both quantitative and qualitative outcomes. So Future Teachers of America Club started at both high school East and West, because we want to start talking to males of color and all of our students about teaching careers as early as their freshman year. At least one 2019 Impact Scholar did a clinical practice in 7th and 8th grade humanities class at Rose International Middle School, which is my middle school. So we were able to see clinical practice opportunities for Impact Scholars. More of our Cherry Hill Public School seniors applied to Rowan University's Impact program. However, they chose different pathways for their post-secondary education, which is fine, but they did make application. And we have done an incredible job, we think, over the past 2 years in terms of making sure that the certificated and non-certificated staff that were involved really felt like they were making an impact, no pun intended, with our high school seniors, that they had some meaningful time to interact with our impact scholars, which is important because our impact scholars are going to be where those certificated and non-certificated staff members are. They were able to talk with them honestly about retention, about social isolation and being in a predominantly white school district, about the supports that they needed, about the things that they would need to do as an educator. So all of those things were absolutely critical and absolutely important in terms of some of the outcomes that we have. All right, some of the future plans that we have, we are not abandoning the Impact program this year. We are working with our current teacher recruiter, Nadine Herring, to look at a virtual visit for 2021. The first graduating class of Rowan University will be in May 2021. And we think that Cherry Hill Public Schools, with Dr. Malash's invitation for no matter what the major, we will give you an interview, is in a prime position to hire Impact graduates. And both Ashley and Yanel are recruiting male students of color for Future Teacher Clubs of America at both the high schools, and they are talking about things that they are doing in all of their other clubs to be able to encourage students about the profession of education. So some of the resources that we have for you within the slide deck, we've given you a comprehensive agenda with logistics because, as you can imagine, myself, Ashley, Joe, our director of curriculum, who has done an incredible job and financed this through our curriculum and instruction department, Dr. Farah Mahan, and her secretaries, Sherry Desjardins, worked very, very hard to be able to get this type of program in place. It takes about 3 months to get everything together. Both Ashley and Yanel have given us their high school permission slip for the high school students, which also has their photo release there. We've given you some information about the Male Educators of Color program, because if nothing more than your first step is to reach out to Nadine Herring after this presentation and to offer this to your male educators of color in your district so that they can become professional mentors, or we have different types of mentors depending upon the type of commitment that folks are able to give to us. And that's for pre-K to 12 certificated staff and for non-certificated staff. And then we have a copy of all of the Impact Scholars and their Rowan University majors. As you are a school district and you're looking to recruit Rowan University majors, just a shameless plug for Rowan, because they are concurrently presenting at the same time that we are, but they are not only in South Jersey, but they are in Central Jersey. They've made some connections with Hamilton Township Schools recently, and they are looking to expand in North Jersey. So, love Cherry Hill Public Schools, but I certainly want our Rowan Impact Scholars to be hired somewhere. All right, now we're gonna offer you an opportunity to give us questions, comments, and concerns. We're gonna try and do that uniquely through a Jamboard. For those of you who are not familiar with the Jamboard, which is a Google extension, you can, as you have this slide, and what I'll do is I will put this information, I'll just share this into the slide deck for folks. And what you can do is you can take sticky notes on the left-hand side where my cursor is, and you can start putting your sticky notes for your questions, your comments, or your concerns onto the Jamboard. There are 20 of us right now. So as we look to, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. I'm going to put the Jamboard link into the chat, and then I'm gonna share my screen again so that we can see what type of sticky notes you all have put within the Jamboard, and then we can begin to address those. Remember that sticky notes are on your left, right underneath this big arrow. Click on the sticky note. You can change the color of your sticky note. You can resize what's happening within your sticky note. And you can put either Joe, Ashley, or George on the sticky note. Okay. What types of activities are the schools doing with their students during the pandemic? So in terms of activities, I'm going to come back to that. Give us 1 second as we get more sticky notes. How will you ensure that this process for hiring is systemic and outlasts the current administration? So I'm going to let Joe Malash take that one.
So that's a commitment that has come through our HR committee with the board. This is where the board has to be involved. We have an internal practice that any district graduates that we will interview for positions. And then the rest of it with the Project Impact Program has come through presentation I've done with the HR committee of the board. But then as superintendent, I can direct the HR committee to flag all individual or flag individual applications and resumes as must interviews.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Malash. I am going to let Yanel and Ashley talk about the future educator activities during the pandemic.
For myself, I am starting Project Success. What we're doing right now, we have had 2 meetings so far. All have been virtual. We do plan to, what really happens in that process is we're going to Cooper Elementary School this year. They select ordinarily we have about 20 students, but because we're working virtually right now, we'll probably go about 10 to 15. This is a one-on-one mentoring program that lasts all year, once a week. So the commitment, for the students, they understand that they're going to be with their student for that period of time. We usually begin in November, and then we end in like April, May, right before testing. And so with it being virtual, our process usually is that they are trained. We talk to them about how do you connect with students? What is it like to tutor? They do communicate with parents and their teachers and the students' teachers to see, how they're doing, what their concerns are. We do get an outline that just tells us, what their favorite activities are, what they enjoy, so that our high school students understand like how to connect and how to choose, their student. We don't want it to be random. If one person likes, the trumpet and then another student likes basketball, that may not be a good fit. So, the students and the elementary school students understand if things don't work out, that they can change their mentor or mentee. And then the process, so I was just talking a little bit about like the choosing of the students. And then the next week is the program itself starts. So we're talking about utilizing Google, and then placing everyone into classrooms that I will be able to see. Apparently there's an extension that allows me to see each room. So I'll be working that way. And they are expected, because ordinarily we're together. If a student forgets their homework, we can go into the classroom. So it's expected that the high school students will contact the teachers once a week in order to find out like what they should focus on with that student when we meet. So we are, attempting to, go along with the times and what it gives us. And continue these programs that have been beneficial for both the high school student and the elementary school students.
The other thing that we're working on, especially with our cultural clubs, we are doing career planning. And within that, we look at resume writing, we look at the college application process, and we talk about things that schools want to see on resumes, such as volunteer hours. How do you balance school with extracurricular activities? Or a lot of our students have jobs also. So when we look at that career planning aspect, we look at, what students should major in college. And then our students that do want to major specifically in education, we as educators work closely with them to say, what are you doing to kind of hone those skills with working with children? Are you mentoring? We have some programs where we do like read-alongs with our elementary school programs. So are you getting involved in that? Are you getting involved in our SAC program, our after-school program with our students? So we're really focusing on those skills to make sure that they have those interpersonal skills, and that on paper that they are prepared, and that they are shining in terms of their career plans.
And I would like just to add, I apologize, George.
Go ahead,
Just wanted to add that I usually have on average 2 Black males that participate in the program a year, and they end up being phenomenal, but they don't end up being teachers. It's very interesting. Very, very good. If students are into sports, what we do is we don't tell them they can't participate. What we do is just make sure when we know that they're about to shift, we find someone that can sub in, so they'll have an opportunity to get to know the student. So when we transition to the new mentor, it'll be kind of seamless in that sense, that they'll know the elementary school student. But the students that I have had participate have been phenomenal, particularly our Black males.
Thank you, Ashley. And we have another question about district use of funds and federal funding. Dr. Malash, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Dr. Mahan was using Title II monies for this program in 2019 and 2020. Is that correct?
Correct. We use Title II and Title III.
Title II and Title III.
Yes.
Dr. Malash, while you are speaking, what are your recommendations for predominantly white districts who might not feel the same urgency that CHPS felt given the population shift?
Then that urgency has to be created. The urgency has got to be there. You know, it's one of the things that folks who are in a leadership position, and it doesn't matter whether it's an administrative position, an instructional position, but folks who are leaders within an individual building or within an individual district need to create that urgency if it doesn't already exist within their district. That's the reality of what our children all will benefit if we can have more diverse teachers in our classrooms. The studies are very clear in terms of what they show, you know, and the impact that it has on all students, but the dramatic impact it has on students of color. You know, to feel that they can connect, that they can see somebody that looks like them, that's in the classroom. You know, you heard the keynote just briefly this afternoon, as she talked about the first time that she ever saw a teacher, you know, that looked like her in a classroom. It's our responsibility not to try to teach the kids that used to be in front of us, you know, or teach in the world that existed back in the 70s and the 80s. If we are not moving forward in that direction, then we are doing a disservice to our school district and to our students. There's a professional and a moral imperative for us to embrace this and to create the opportunity. And I think as more school districts embrace this as a reality and make this a demand, that you'll see more programs like Project Impact, you know, popping up at other colleges. I know there's a question in the chat about, is there a program for female students? You know, then I think you'll start to see that as well to diversify what teachers look like. But we need to create that urgency if it doesn't already exist within the school district.
Thank you, Dr. Malash. I would add one thing as it related to a follow-up to Dr. Malash. Like, this particular endeavor, this partnership that we have is an outgrowth of our Culture Proficiency, Equity, and Character Ed goals. We have 7 goals, and one of the goals, goal number 3, deals with recruitment and retention. So I would encourage predominantly white districts in all 584 of our school districts in New Jersey that you can't do this work in isolation. There are larger pieces that undergird this work that are foundational, that are supported by Dr. Malash and our school board through our 7 goals and our 5-year plan that deals with teacher diversification and retention. So it's not just enough to recruit impact students to Cherry Hill Public Schools. That's why we brought out our 23 male teachers of color and non-certificated educators as well, because we have to be able to provide an environment for them to be able to stay. So a larger goal 3 of our Culture Proficiency, Equity, and Character Ed goal undergirds and supports the CHPS partnership with Rowan University.
I was going to add that I have a unique perspective, and so does Ashley, in the sense of our job is that we're a connection to home and school. I do visit, and we do visit students at their home safely. And that allows us to get a unique perspective as to the real lives and happenings of our students, particularly those of the students of color. And for myself, you know, and Ashley, you know, when we talk about, you know, how do you create that urgency? You know, I appreciate, you know, Dr. Malash, because we have a relationship where he is a great listener. We are able to give him an understanding of what, you know, the systematic racism that happens within our buildings, what that looks like, and how can we support our students through that. And he utilizes student voice. The student voice. So, you know, in order for us to understand and make change that we need to do, you have to understand where our students are coming from and how, the systematic racism, what that looks like for them, and then how do we address that? And their voices are important. And he's made a huge emphasis upon that, where, you know, that's very important to him. So, you know, it's just not about the adults that, you know, attempt to change this. It's going to be the students and families that really drive it. So it's really having those courageous conversations with one another about how that presents itself and how do we become better. That's, you know, it's that simple.
And just to add to that, as Yanel was saying, the importance of student voice in our district, students have been an integral part of every step of decision-making in terms of they have stepped forward and said, this is what we'd like to see within our curriculum. They attend board meetings. They attend meetings with our administration to say, this is what we want our school to look like. So in terms of social justice and equity and things going on within the world, they have been on the forefront of shaping how this is going to look. And we have, as a district, we have been 100% supportive of our students and worked hand in hand with them. And we often tell our students, you all are the ones who are directly impacted by decisions that are made, so you should have a seat at the table. And that's the important part of the Cherry Hill District, where when we say something, when we say student voice is imperative, we mean it. And you see it in every aspect of our district.
Thank you, Ashley. I think you began to address the social justice and equity issues as it related to identity development. So Joe, Ashley, or Yanel, would you like to say anything further about that last question that we see there?
I can just talk in particular this summer. As a staff at East, we divvied up all the African-American students and we said we're going to check in to see how they were doing, and that was imperative for us to make sure that they understood that, we were thinking about them and if there was a way we can support them. A few students they wanted to march. They had an idea that they wanted to march. So they came up with a theme of education. They wanted to see that the African-American Studies course is mandatory. They want to see a social justice piece to that, where we're actually talking about race. So along with our superintendent and the police, our Cherry Hill Police, we were able to organize a march that probably had over 300 people attend. It was very diverse. All the students spoke. It wasn't, myself or the other advisors that, had taken place. This was a student-run, student-led march. And again, it just shows that, how supportive, Dr. Malash is in reference to that student voice. So the students spoke about what they wanted to see. And I just talked about a few of those things, just in reference to how our police and security interact with our students of color at school. Again, and our theme was, education. We don't talk about the history, and they said that. They said they don't see that in everyday, coursework. It's not infused into our curriculum. I'm also the advisor of the Muslim Student Association, and that they have voiced the same thing. We just don't, we don't talk about other people and their impact and their growth to our nation. So, these are the things that we are driving within our district that are student-led. And like I said, we have a fantastic, administration that really does hear our students and our staff's concerns, because again, I have to give him kudos. Dr. Malash, we've had some difficult conversations, but I know that I can always, talk to him, and we've established that where it's authentic and honest, and that we're both, going to be open with one another. So, being able to establish that with him has allowed our district to really grow and move in that way, in the social justice piece, and like I said, the racial and addressing the inequities that we see within our buildings.
Can I just add real fast, George? I agree with Ms. Joseph in what she said about how we have to approach it and giving voice or listening to the voice that students already have voices. We have to listen to them and embrace them. The other thing that I would tell you is, and Yanel brought this up about talking about it, you have to engage in the conversation. It has to be discussed. During the summer, Dr. Pubassett, who's the executive county superintendent for Camden County, she brought together students. We got students from across the county to talk about kids that were doing similar things in Collingswood or in Haddonfield or in Haddon Township or Audubon or down in Pine Hill. But to get the kids across the county to be able to have conversation and to realize that it's not a unique problem, that it's not a one-off at each of our individual high schools, but to talk about what's going on, how can we support one another, and how can we systemically across South Jersey, start to make an impact. Acknowledging it, talking about it is so critically important, so critically important.
Thank you, Joe, Yanel, and Ashley. And I think we have run out of time. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna make sure that I put in the chat for one final time before we get ready to go. The information for the slide deck, which has all of our contact information, and we would love to hear from you about how we can support you, how we can be your thought partner in you taking your first steps toward partnerships or providing men of color or the work that Cherry Hill is doing or any of the other areas that we've begun to talk about. And we thank you so much for taking this 50 minutes out of your day, in which we know you are incredibly busy and have a lot to do, to be able to hear a great job from us. I'm reading Dr. Lavelle Pugh Bassett's chat there, and we will always want to give a shout out to our county superintendent, who has been doing this work for about 4 years now as it relates to equity. So thank you so much for your support, Dr. Lavelle Pugh Bassett, and being an equity warrior and a champion in supporting us here in Camden County. So I will give last words to Dr. Malaj, Mrs. Joseph, and Mrs. Giles.
Just thank you, everybody, for being here. Please make this work a priority. It's ongoing. It has to be embraced. And again, everybody can embrace a leadership position within their school or within their district. You must make this a priority. This has to be at the top of any list of anything being done and must remain there.
And I again want to say thank you all for joining us. For myself, and I know, Ashley, the work is not comfortable. And I appreciate, again, our administration for being so open. We've had to speak up, so I would encourage everyone, you see it, you understand it, you know it, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure that our, administration understand how it presents ourselves. We only want to make everyone better, and we want students to, to learn to their potential. Their learning is infinite, and we want to make sure we create that space so it can be. So that's it. If there's something going on or something's wrong, or if they feel diminished in some way, it's not going to happen. And that's what our district understands. So I thank you, and just open to any kind of support I can give you.
And I just want to echo the same sentiments. Thank you for having us today. We are just overjoyed that you invited us to come and share with you of our experiences. I often say this is not just hard work, but it's heart work also. We put our hearts into this every day. So if there's anything that we can do to support you at your school district to get a program going similar to this, just reach out to any of us, and we are more than excited to help you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much, friends. And thank you, Dr. Gaitan G. Marie from Rowan University, stopping in and talking about this incredible partnership. Thank you, Dr. Jean Marie, for all of your leadership over the last years. We appreciate it. We wish you all well. If you're going on to your next session, we'll give you a couple minutes to get there. Thank you so much. And thank you for Nancy for being our incredible host. And you all take care. Have a great rest of your afternoon.